everyone has the same question. What are AI agents and why are they the next big thing? Why do we hearing about artificial intelligence agents everywhere? AI agents are going to take jobs and so on. Welcome to this video. My name is George. I'm 20 years old and I've been involved in artificial intelligence for a few months now. So I think I'm quite capable of sharing my experience with you, teaching you why AI, what AI is. Above all, I'm sure you've heard people talk about agents, about whether they're going to take our jobs. Don't worry. In this video, you're going to understand exactly everything you need to know. So let's get started. First of all, here we have AI agents. What are agents? What is this no-code thing? Okay, let's explain very quickly and simply. Basically, an AI agent is not the same as a chatbot. We'll see that in the next slides. But just so you get the idea, it's about creating agents without code. In other words, you don't need to know how to code. You don't need to have a background. You don't need anything at all to create these kinds of receptionists or conversational agents. We'll look at the different types there are and we'll go over everything. Don't worry. We're also going to talk about tools and APIs, which if I mention them to you right now, I know you probably feel just as lost. Maybe you have some idea about the tools, but APIs can be a bit complicated. Don't worry. We're going to take a deep look at what all of this is. Obviously, we'll also cover real use cases that can arise with artificial intelligence, what its potential is, and above all, the value we can bring to these businesses who will pay us for these important and valuable services we're going to offer them. Why should you learn about artificial intelligence, AI agents, and all of this? Before we get into the reasons and everything else, I swear to you that in the coming decades, this will be the most valuable skill of all. And I can guarantee, think about it, everything is pointing towards AI. Just look at the videos of billionaires and millionaires talking about it. If I were 16, I would start with artificial intelligence without a second thought and so on. Just to give you an idea of where we're heading, by 2030, 50% of companies will be automated or will be using artificial intelligence within their businesses. This shouldn't worry you for the simple reason that you're here wanting to learn what AI is. So I promise you that if you adapt to AI and not the other way around, if AI doesn't literally replace you with an agentic, everything will go well for you. In fact, it will go very well. All right. Now, 66%, what does this 66% mean? I'm going to make it very clear so you understand. And I know it sounds incredible, but it's true. In other words, companies are going to be looking for 66% of people who truly know about artificial intelligence. What I mean by this is setting aside just AI agents and setting aside knowing how to program, so to speak, like making all these receptionists, automations, etc. Imagine working within a company. Let's consider the example of a relatively simple yet fully functional law firm. In that law firm, someone who knows how to use artificial intelligence will take pictures of documents, send them to the AI, how it generates summaries, PDFs, save them to the drive, everything much more easily. Let's say the other person doesn't use artificial intelligence. In fact, they don't even know what artificial intelligence is. They haven't used chatgpt. They don't really know much, right? Let's say, well, both people have worked 8 hours. One of them, in 8 hours, has completed 20 tasks they needed to do. Objectives. For example, 20 objectives they have to accomplish. They finished them in 8 hours. And the other person, out of 20, maybe has done 4. Because they don't know how to use artificial intelligence. They do everything by hand, making the summaries themselves. He or she does it all. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, here we have a tenfold increase in productivity, which, well, obviously also means efficiency. But as you can see, a tenfold increase is quite a lot. There's really no comparison, and it's actually real. Just so you get an idea, let's take, once again, a law firm where one has automations, chatbots, receptionists, versus one that doesn't. Let's take the simple example of contacting the law firm. You write to the law firm that has a receptionist, and they'll reply to you instantly with all the information you need, all the prices, everything. The other one obviously will take longer depending on how long the person takes. If they're talking to other people, if they don't have enough staff. In this case, they would hardly have anyone, because if the company isn't automated, they'd basically be out of business. But anyway, let's take another example. Within the legal field, for example, if a lawyer wants to look up a case, let Google Drive, because there's a chatbot that can easily provide it. They go to the chatbot and ask, hey, give me John's case. Basically, the chatbot will directly provide John's case, obviously including his last names and any ID John has. And it will give the lawyer the entire case without them having to search through paperwork or look for unnecessary information, right? From the others. A lot of jobs will come up and they won't know which one it is. In short, there's just no comparison. And above all, you should see this as an opportunity, not as a threat. And I think you already understand that since you're here. And honestly, it's a huge advantage that you're here now watching this video. And honestly, I'm proud because most people just don't care. It's like, whatever. There's something else that'll pass, right? But no, it's actually the opposite piece is your chance right now to seize this advantage and know how to use it for your own benefit. So don't approach it with fear. Don't think it's going to take your job away. It's quite the opposite. If you're working right now, you could identify the areas that can be automated. And I assure you that from the inside, when you see the pain points, everything becomes much clearer. No one knows things better than you do. Now let's move on to what an AI agent is, what exactly an AI agent is, because we hear about agents everywhere, but we never really know what exactly an AI agent is, right? So we call them, or rather digital workers, that would be the most accurate term, since they are workers in a sense, but they never rest. They are consistently available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, always fully operational. And obviously, this is a truly huge advantage because unfortunately, there is absolutely no comparison between a human and a human being. Ultimately, this is a huge advantage because there is no comparison between a human and a digital worker. The digital worker doesn't get tired, doesn't get sick, never falls ill, and is fully operational all year round. Here we have what we just mentioned, but let's add that it can also understand and act on its own. You can personalize it for people however you like. Literally, you can even give it prompts so it has whatever personality you want. It can be cold, it can be friendly, it can be professional, whatever you want. On top of that, and this is what's incredible, you can understand and act based on those actions or the input that the agent receives. That's the funniest, most entertaining, and least believable part of all this, because we're reaching a point where an agent can basically understand a human. And above all, well, now NCPs are also coming out, which are basically agents that literally manage many more agents and do a lot more things at once. But obviously, you can assign a specific task to an agent. Just focus on sending emails. That agent will take all the emails it receives and reply to them, for example. On literally whatever objective we want to give it, whatever focus we want to assign. So that's the most important valuable thing. Now, let's look at the key comparison, which is chatbot versus agent. What's the difference? Well, so you understand a chatbot, which you've surely seen thousands and thousands of on websites, only has the information you needed and can respond to that. Or basically, it's about clicking buttons like, I have a question, and it will give you some options for your question. You click on one, and based on that, it will start responding to things which are already automated. In other words, a chatbot that's fully automated can't really think about which tools to use, if it needs to make an appointment, schedule something. The agent, our agent, can literally do anything we allow it to do. Basically, it can schedule appointments, automate emails, send reminders, basically whatever we feel like. So an example that we make this much clearer is that we have a waiter. The waiter comes over, takes your order, and informs you about some things available at the place. Not exactly all the drinks, not exactly all the dishes available, no, just one, a quarter of them. The agent will inform you about everything, will go tell the chef, bring you the food, will give you everything ready to go. But the chatbot only has access to a quarter of it. All right, so let's move on to one of the most important parts, which is the anatomy of an artificial intelligence agent. It's important to understand this well so you can grasp how they work and how in reality they're capable of everything they can do. So it's made up of 5 important parts. We're going to go through them one by one so you can understand everything without any problem. So let's start with the brain, or rather the large language model, which is what the brain of the artificial intelligence agent is usually called. Without this, nothing else makes sense, because imagine giving it tools, giving it instructions, giving it anything, but it doesn't have a brain. I mean, it's like, imagine a real person without a brain, completely useless, right? Well, it's the same with the agent. To help you understand better, the brains are, for example, ChatGPT, which has a gigantic database, or LLama, or it could also be Gemini. And the most powerful thing is that you can give it instructions in any language in the world. So there's no need to code. You don't need anything else. And here's the key. As we've said, the brain is what's important, but of course, it then needs instructions that the agent has to follow. So we move on to the prompt, which is the set of instructions we give it by speaking in a language, either English, Russian, Spanish. There's no problem in whatever language it may be. That's why they're actually so powerful, because we can speak to them in any language and the agent will understand us without any problem at all. Agents also have memory, obviously, because imagine talking to someone who keeps forgetting what you're talking about. It wouldn't make any sense. So memory consists of, imagine a context window that always remembers the last conversations you've had with this agent, so that you always keep these same conversations in mind. For example, you can set it to remember the last 50 conversations, and it will always take those last 50 into account. You can also set it to remember just the last 5 if you want. It really depends. It always depends on the context in which you're using it to set that particular context window. And above all, what this also does is improve future conversations, because each time every conversation gets better. Besides, it will always take into account what you've told it. For example, I always need the client's name, the time, and the service they want. It will always pick up on those 3 things. Always. It won't finish the appointment until it gets those 3 things in it. We also have the knowledge base, or rather the database, which is also known as RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. To make it clear, imagine a law firm that has tons and tons of information they would need to create a RAG. Picture it like a Google Drive, just so you understand what I'm talking about. A Google Drive where you put all the information, all the clients, so that, for example, if a lawyer wants to look up John's case, they can just type John and the case will come up right away without having to sift through piles and piles of paperwork. But anyway, the database is completely optional. It's just good to keep it in mind, because otherwise the agents wouldn't be as useful, since they don't have a general base, so to speak. But we make them powerful with RAGs because they have an information base they can access, and they only have the information that's inside. And that way they can't make things up. They can't indent things. They can't hallucinate, as it's usually called. And finally, imagine giving your agent any tool so it can use it like a normal person would. For example, you give the agent, hey, this is Gmail. You specify to it, with Gmail, you have to reply to all the emails you receive, and it responds based on what has been sent to you. What is the agent going to do? It's going to take all the emails it receives and reply to them exactly as we instruct it, with the prompt, the instructions we give it, in a cold, warm, friendly manner. So that's why agents don't just talk. They're not just conversational. They can also finish tasks and do things like, for example, updating documents, even creating or deleting them, anything out. Now let's look at everything at once. Imagine the agent receives a message. It receives a message, so the first thing it's going to do is process everything with the LLM, access the prompt, and see what it needs to do. After that, it will directly take the memory, so it can see the context, if anything has happened before, or if it needs, for example, the database. Although the database is completely optional. If the question isn't among those, for example, that are in the database, then it won't answer from there. It will just use its own connected LLM. And then it will finish with the tool by sending the message back to that same client. All right. So let's get into what I think is truly one of the hardest parts to fully understand, which is precisely how agents actually use their tools. But hey, this is like, well, understanding this concept is truly like having wall hacks in a game like Call of Duty. So please don't worry too much. Once you fully grasp it, it's generally like possessing a superpower. And what they understand, we're going to carefully observe how these agents effectively use their tools, what their precise method is, because as what we'll see, we primarily achieve this by simply talking. People talk and communicate like, hey waiter, can you help me please? Agents go a bit further, and instead of talking, they're using APIs, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, is going to be the hardest part. But don't worry, we'll want to explain it very clearly, and by that I mean in a straightforward way. So basically, the API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, is like a fundamental building block. That's what I mean in a clear and understandable way. So let's get to it. Basically, so you understand right now you've used an API to access this video. For example, you clicked on the video, and since the video is uploaded to YouTube, you connected to YouTube servers, requested to watch the video, and the video opened up on your screen. The same thing happens every time you, for example, log into Instagram. You tap on Instagram, the process goes to Instagram servers, and Instagram grants you access. So Instagram opens up for you. To help you understand this in a more visual way, let's say, for example, this is Instagram, there's an arrow, and here are the server. From these servers, the data then goes down to the JSON format. And from that JSON format, basically, it's then sent back to your phone. That's it. I mean, that was terrible. I won't do it again, I promise. But it was just so you could understand it in a more visual way. It's like two computers talking to each other from a significant distance, either to grant secure access or to efficiently transfer important information. The classic example of, once again, a diligent waiter who meticulously takes your order. Okay, you want to open Instagram? I'll carefully write that down. He then goes to the kitchen and clearly says, hey, I want to open Instagram. He comes back and lets you open Instagram, and you've opened Instagram, and that's it. I mean, these are silly examples, but just so it's clearer for you without all the technical jargon. Within the tool, we obviously have important parts, like for example, the URL, which we all know what that is. It's, for example, like google.com to access the Google website, let's say, for instance. Easy. I think that's pretty understandable. Here, we're going to move on to more technical language. And we have the input, which you need to understand, for example, for the M8N program that I'm going to teach you in depth so you can create any kind of automation from scratch. But the input is where the process or the information we are receiving comes from. For example, so you understand play. Let's say, imagine you have an application that's for WhatsApp. And with that WhatsApp application, obviously messages come in and we want to pass them on to the agent. So in this case, the WhatsApp application will be the input because that's where the message comes to be given to the agent. But special past you very simply. Imagine the example of a baraba you always go to with your family. And where the next time you go, they tell you, hey, this time you can't come because you don't have the key. And you have to find the key first in order to use the restaurant to sit with your family. Okay, now let's put it in technical terms. There is not, imagine that you're inside N8N, which is the platform we're going to focus on, right? So imagine you're inside N8N, which is the platform we're going to focus on. And you want to use ChatGPT to give your agent a memory. So what you need to do is connect an API key. You will find the API key inside the ChatGPT platform, not inside ChatGPT itself. You have to go to your case and find out which one is the API key. You connect it to N8N, and then you can use that same ChatGPT. So with the bar example and the N8N one, I think it's more or less clear to you now. But don't worry, I know it seems complicated, but it's much easier than it looks. It's all about practice and experience. Don't worry, you'll master it without any problems. Now, we've talked about the input, which is where the messages come from, but we also have an output, which basically consists of, we have WhatsApp, which serves as the input. We send it to our agent, and from that agent, the response will go back to WhatsApp because we want to reply on WhatsApp, but we could reply to another channel. Let's say it's Slack. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Slack, but let's use Telegram, which you should know. And let's say you send a message through WhatsApp. We have the input in WhatsApp. The agent processes all that information, generates a response according to how we've programmed it. And the response is sent through Telegram. That would be the output. The response we get in Telegram, it could be that it sends us an audio like, hey, I got this message on WhatsApp and I need to tell you this on Telegram. And it tells you in audio or in text or however we want. Don't worry about what you see here below each one. This here, for example, is literally code. But don't worry, you don't even need to know how to create agents or do any of these things. This is the language that, well, we'll look at it much later on, but really don't worry about these things that seem a bit difficult because honestly, they're much easier than they look. But this is their language. The double quotes have their reason, the colons, everything. But anyway, let's move on from this. Let's go to the next thing, which is, what is a schema? All right, so a schema is basically, for example, a person with a schema has everything clear, knows how to do everything precisely, knows how not to make mistakes because they have something to follow. Well, it's exactly the same with the agent. You give an agent a schema like, hey, the client is going to respond to you with this. So if they respond with this, you have to reply with this, this, and this. For example, if the agent has to book an appointment, well, to book that appointment, the agent needs the client's name, the day, the date, the time. Optionally, what kind of haircut or what service they're going to have. So for all of that, they need the answers. So the agent won't stop until they get those answers because they know there's a process they have to follow. Obviously, if they don't, they won't be able to make a reservation. To make it even clearer, the agent has to use WhatsApp to send a message. But to send that message, wait agent has no idea what WhatsApp is, doesn't even know what a number is, doesn't know anything at all. But you read them a script and say, hey, you have the WhatsApp tool connected. This tool is WhatsApp, and where that you can send messages, voice notes, or whatever you need. So if someone sends you a message, reply with another message using the keyword. So you understand me. It's never really necessary to specify so much, but the more you specify, the more you explain, people would understand it much better with greater clarity and much more efficiency in everything. And that way, they won't make any mistakes at any point since they have a script. They can't go wrong. All right. And the simplest thing of all, how to use that tool, what it's like on the inside. So, for example, you're chatting with someone and you might ask them, hey there, what's the current weather like in New York City right now? Well, what it's going to do directly and immediately is go and access the relevant weather database, for example, or whatever system it's connected to. Let's say it has many different tools available, okay, in this particular case, and the easiest part. When the tool is in action, how is it used? What is the whole process? So let's go step by step simply. When you ask it, for example, hey, what's the current weather like in New York City today? Directly the intelligent agent, okay, that's saying it has many tools connected. It's going to pick exactly the tool for weather. With the weather tool, it will go directly to the weather database and it will check, hey, it will ask, what's the weather like in New York today? Suddenly, it's going to grab the information, or rather, in that very second, it will give you the information or the answer. So, hey, it's 30 degrees in New York today. That's it. It's that simple. It'll just tell you, well, depending on the tool, depending on what you ask, it will then think, I'm very careful, use the tool it has been given. All right, now, before we continue, I just want to tell you not to worry if you're feeling lost. If you feel like it's impossible to understand this or anything else, honestly, that's completely normal. I mean, you're entering a whole new world, and above all, watch the videos as many times as you need to because it's normal, really. I'm saying this because, honestly, I've spent a lot of time working with this, and I can understand the concepts without any problem. But I swear to you, I've been in the same situation as you. I've taken a ton of notes. Then I've looked over them. I've rewatched the videos I have taken notes from. But anyway, taking notes is before reviewing, mainly because I think it helps things stick in your mind. But all right, let's get to it. All right, types of agents. We have the conversational one and the automated one. You'll easily understand what the difference is. Obviously, the conversational one is like a chat style. It's, well, in chat, for example, imagine you have your computer, you go to a website, and on the website you see a little chat bubble. And you enter this bubble and talk in the chat as if you were speaking to a normal person, or it's automated through WhatsApp or social media or anything like that. It needs a human interaction, obviously, since the chat isn't going to talk by itself. If someone asks, a human calls, all right, it will respond. I said calls because obviously it could be through the chat or it could be by a phone call. There are phone agents that already speak like normal people, so you can even tell it's AI. So just imagine all it does is respond, adapt, inform. That's the only function of conversational AI. Next, we have the automated one, which basically consists of, imagine a trigger, which is called a trigger in this case. But to make it much simpler for you, imagine a form that you have to fill out when you enter a website, and every time that form is filled out, the whole workflow is triggered. This is the internal part of N8N where all these nodes are built. So just so you understand me, because I start talking in technical terms and get carried away, basically, it means that when the form is filled out, the entire following process happens automatically. It gets registered in the CRM automatically. Then an email is sent to the business owner letting them know they have a new lead, and everything happens on its own. In other words, the conclusion is that conversational systems always need someone to talk to or someone to call them back and respond. The automated one will do everything on its own completely independently. At no point will it require humans. And that's the trick. It will always carry out the entire process after it's triggered, after one action. Everything else will follow. Let's look at real life cases that, for example, many companies have right now, but not even a quarter of them. These automations, let's see how it works in the real world. So here we have, for example, the first one, which is customer support. Basically, imagine a company world, an e-commerce store, to give the clearest example, where customers usually have a lot of questions. They often have frequently asked questions like, when will my order arrive? How would that work? Imagine a chat on that same Shopify e-commerce website, for example, where it answers any common questions. It has a small database that it can access to ask or resolve any doubts. We also have here, for example, something super important and highly requested, which is basically scheduling appointments with just a few simple messages. I mean, just imagine how powerful it is for a dental clinic to handle things with just a few messages. Hey, I want to come in tomorrow to get my teeth whitened. And the chap's reply is, sorry, there are no openings tomorrow, but this day at this time is available. It will tell you the next available time, check the availability, and then schedule the appointment for you with just a few simple messages. Instead of someone having to reply to hundreds of messages, a simple chat can answer all of them at once without any problem. Lead qualification. Imagine an agent whose only job is to read the conversations and figure out which ones are potential leads, which ones are the good ones, which ones are somewhat interested, and which ones aren't interested at all. Imagine being able to always write directly to those who are most interested so you never miss a moment. I mean, to be efficient at all times, or something as useful as, for example, that same dental clinic having email follow-ups that basically say, hey, what did you think of your last appointment? Rate us, give us a rating to boost our Google Maps reviews, or you have another appointment on this date to check your whitening treatment, or anything else. Follow-ups are very important and can be automated in a very, very effective way so that those clients are much more satisfied, and all without any human involvement. And as you see here, companies use agents to save time, reduce costs, and you know what it is to improve output. What makes them so powerful? As we've already seen, just imagine an automation that's running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, always on. In other words, there's never a moment when it stops. It's automated at all times with no issues, no errors. AI, the digital worker takes action. That is, it first thinks and then acts or does. That's what's important. That's what makes it so special and powerful, truly. It's not just that it's animated pay. It's not that it's always going to do the same thing. No, it has the ability to think, to process the input it receives in order to deliver the output that's needed, whatever is required at that moment. It works based on tools, obviously the ones provided by, in this case, the programmer, so to speak, whether the direction of the business owner who is in charge. It's powerful because we can give it whatever we want. If, for example, we don't want to give it access to an important database, then it's not necessary but if we also want to give it access because, well, it's necessary and I don't have to reveal, and this is powerful because we can choose which tools to give to this agent, which in this case, well, the customization is usually up to their boss or the business owner in charge in this case. In any case, we decide what the artificial intelligence needs in order to act appropriately. Obviously, it's scalable and fast. And now let's move on to the recap very quickly. The tools, we have the tools, as we already know, in the agents for Wiki to Gmail. And every time you receive an email, you reply to it in the way we instruct. And every time an email arrives, it will always do so. The database, as we've mentioned, for example, with RAS, which, as you know, stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, is also quite important because if we provide it with the database, it will always use that database to answer the questions that clients ask. Or if there is no database and it's not a RAG, it could also be the prompt we've given it, or the Google Sheets we've provided, or the documents we've given it with the information contained inside. It doesn't always have to be a RAG, as we've already discussed. It depends on the case. And obviously, the most important thing is the prompting, which basically means the instructions we give our agent. So it does everything in a specific way. And always remember this. The more specific we are, the fewer mistakes our agent will make. The prompt is very, very important. And don't worry, there are many platforms to help you perfect your prompts, or even ChatGPT itself can help you create perfect prompts. But I always recommend having a consistent base to build those prompts from. So now, let's dive into N8N. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I know you've been eager to get to. All right, let's get to my favorite part of the video. N8N. Here, I'm going to explain things to you and help you get familiar with this whole area, which I can assure you is easier than it looks. Like everything in life, it just takes practice and experience. So don't worry if you don't understand some things right now. Watch the video several times, especially this part if you need to. But anyway, step by step, we're going to create your first conversational chat. We're going to make an AI agent that can book appointments. It will be very simple, not very useful, but it's so you can understand and, above all, fit together the pieces we've run today. So let's get to it. Before anything else, let me show you something first. Do you remember what we talked about regarding an automated system? Well, this would be an automated system. Imagine every time someone fills out this form, the entire following workflow would be triggered, and the whole process would happen automatically. So now let's move straight to the chat. What are we going to do? So let's put the chat trigger here, which we have right here. Perfect. We place it. Okay, perfect. Now, the good thing is that everything is set up based on this chat because it's the default one in N8N. We're going to add the agent directly and boom, here it is. So as you'll see here now, and you probably already know what it is, we have the tool, the memory, and the chat model, which is the brain. So let's go ahead and add the brain directly. You can use Gemini or whatever you want, but in this case, we're going to use OpenAI. ChatGPT, it's the easiest. Don't worry about this part. It's nothing important. This is just to let it use more tokens, fewer tokens, be more efficient, less efficient, and so on. This is a test, so no need for a powerful one. We'll leave it on mini. Perfect. Let's go to the memory. For memory, we're going to select simple memory. This is something you really need to be clear about. Actually, we're never really going to use simple memory. It's kind of useless, but it does serve its purpose. For a client, you're never going to use this one.
Personally, for example, I would go with PostgreSQL. It's very powerful and the more, but anyway, let's use simple memory, which for now will do its job perfectly. And as you remember, is the memory. So in the window context, we're going to set it to remember the previous 20 conversations, which isn't really necessary, but let's set it to 20. That's more than enough for this case. So perfect. We almost have it all configured. We still have the tool left, but before moving on to the tool, let's take a quick look at the agent so you can see what it's like inside. All right, here we are. Well, actually, let's write to the agent. We've already configured everything necessary. The tool is optional, but of course we're going to add it. So let's type hello here. All right, it just opened for me. Now it's working. Perfect. Let's open the chat, type hello, and perfect. We've got it. As you'll see here, there's nothing in the output. So in this case, it leaves it inside the agent. So let's take a look inside. Hello. All right. The thing is, I typed hello a couple of times here because things got a bit complicated and it shut down on me. So I had to start recording again. But anyway, it's not a problem. We're here. And well, now imagine this is perfect for you to see because the agent with its memory has realized that we keep typing hello over and over. And now it's complained telling me to stop already, that I'm being annoying. So right, let's enter the prompt. Okay, here, system message, we've got it. And here we're going to enter the important prompt, the instructions. I've already got it prepared, but anyway, you can go directly to ChatGPT and ask it to give you a prompt for a barber. I'm going to copy and paste this since I already had it ready. So as you'll see now, we'll quickly go over it inside, super fast. All right, we copy and paste it here. Okay, now we've really got it. To make it clearer, because right now you can't see anything, we come here, click here, perfect, we've got it. Let's take a look at the role. Basically, we've told it that you are from the shop AI barbershop and well, you're an assistant. So we've told it the things it needs to do. We've also informed it about the prices. They should be around here. We've told it the opening hours and well, that's pretty much it. These are just a few examples of how we should behave with the customer. So perfect. Now we've got everything set up. Now the only thing missing is the tool, which is the Google Sheets we have here. So you can copy the same Google Sheets if you want. But anyway, let's get to it. Let's put it into action. Oh, okay, perfect. Let's search for Sheets here. All right, we've got it. And now the operation, this is the first thing you need to do. What do we want to do? Add things, right? So let's remove my face. Perfect. Let's select append row. Perfect. Here it is. Now we have to specify which sheet, what you named it. In my case, I have Barber Demo and Sheet 1. Perfect. It's always like this. Sheet 1, we write it exactly as it is. Since we selected append row, it shows us the columns in Google Sheets. So let's just enter it. This is like a hidden code. So the AI interprets each column for what it is, right? So perfect. To avoid doing the work manually, it's just perfect. All right. We are finally done with the initial setup. We have successfully arrived here. And now, after all that preparation, it is finally the opportune moment to proceed with the booking process. Yes, it is indeed time to book our selection. Let's take a moment to see. Okay, let's carefully examine what the system or application is going to tell us next. I made a mistake and entered it wrong. Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. Let's just enter everything directly. Let's go ahead and tell it that it's, well, let's do it step by step. Perfect. Let's tell it that it's for a man. As you can see, step by step is going to tell us what we need to do, okay? Actually, we could set this up so it doesn't give us so much, well, all the hassle, but anyway. Here it tells us to specify directly when it's for, well, let's enter it specifically because I'm not sure if it's set correctly, so just to avoid any issues. For 0 to 7, let's put 0 to 7 again. 0 to 7, 0 to 7, it's fine. And I put 2020, not 2025, unbelievable. Yeah, 5 years ago, it was the very beginning of the... All right, okay. What time would we like for 2020? Let's set it to 5 p.m. And now, yes, it has all the information. It tells us it's sure. Yes, we are absolutely sure. For 2020, we go back about 5 years and get a haircut. Why not? Perfect. And now, as you can see, it has added here for 2020, 07, negative 07. George, men's haircut, $20 at 5 in the afternoon. So perfect. Now we have everything complete. It was basically just to give you a quick overview of what N8N is, how it works, and the potential it has. This is nothing, honestly. This is really quite useless. But anyway, it was just so you could see what it's like. Now we've covered the basics. So let's move on to the most important part of sales, which is what we're all interested in. So let's get to it.
All right, congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Now we're wrapping up. Let's get to the important part. How are we going to monetize this skill? How are we going to sell these services? So without further delay, let's get to it. Okay, there are 1.7 million small businesses in the United States, and their annual revenues range from 500,000 to 10 million per year. I mean, just imagine what we're talking about here. I mean, these revenues are insane, and we're talking about small businesses. So just imagine they have absolutely no problem paying you 10,000, 8,000, 5,000 for an automation that's going to solve thousands and thousands of problems for them. When instead of paying a worker, you just have to pay a setup fee, which for complex automation is basically, let's say, 10,000, and then just a measly $500 or $1,000 a month. The risk part is that they want AI more than anything. They just have no idea where to start. They're not going to start studying artificial intelligence. That's obvious. So this is where we come in. Since we're at the beginning of the wave, we can seize this opportunity to the fullest and help them at no cost. And by no cost, I mean without any kind of hassle. Don't think twice about it. Take advantage of being the ones who will solve that problem for them, so that when it comes time to pay, they do it proudly and happily. I'm telling you, there are a ton of agencies trying to do this, but most of them either do it very poorly, or the big ones only help other big companies. And this is the best part of all. You really don't need to be the creator of ChatGPT. You don't need 10 years of experience. You don't need to be some incredible person who's been studying artificial intelligence for years. This is the best part of all. The only thing you need is to know more than the business owner themselves. So you've got the key right now. You're here. Seriously. A business owner would love to be here learning about artificial intelligence so they could incorporate it into their own business, but they don't have the time. Nor are they going to stop to consider whether they'll do it or not. So what you're going to do is soak up everything like a sponge, and then all of this, you're going to pass it on to that same business owner. And above all, the most important thing is that when it comes to knowing more than about business owner themselves, and in being able, without any problem, to understand what a business is, to know which automations would be profitable for them and how to implement those automations. Once you provide these services, this consulting, you're really doing 90% of the work for them, and they won't hesitate to pay you to handle this process for them. Really, don't worry, because all you need is practice. And by this, I mean that you can start with some simple consulting sessions, trying to explain in the best way possible what AI is, how AI works, or by going business to business to explain to small local businesses what artificial intelligence is. Try to learn how to sell, because this is a completely separate skill that you will truly need to perfect, and you will be difficult at first, which is totally normal. You've probably never done it before, and if you have and you have a background in sales, honestly, congratulations, because you can even sell high-ticket items without any problem. The market is full, or rather is starving, and this is where you can really step in without any issues at all. Just imagine having this valuable skill truly translates to immediate value, or to put it bluntly, immediate money. Right now, there might be an agency that's handling 1,000 businesses, and those 1,000 businesses have no choice but to pay that one business, that one agency, because they don't know any other agencies. So there's no price competition. And just imagine you could have your own agency with 1,000 clients right now. And I don't know where you're from, what your background is. Maybe you're from the United States, maybe you're from another country, maybe you're from Spain. I don't know, but I can assure you that if you take this to your home country, or you can innovate in another country, it's a clear idea for immediate success, literally. I mean, success that just skyrockets. Because just imagine right now, the United States is the main country where these kinds of things usually happen. Then it happens in Spain, Latin America, and so on. It spreads around the world, but everything happens here first, in the United States. So if here, it still hasn't even had the boom of, being super famous and well known, and only a few businesses are implementing it, just imagine what it's going to be like in a few months when the boom actually hits here. Just think about the advantage we have right now. I mean, right now, you watching this video, you honestly know more than 95% of the population. You have 3 ways to monetize these skills, which basically consist of education, consulting, and implementation. Let's go through them one by one so you can understand everything perfect. Education. Imagine educating those same business owners, the employees, so they know how to apply this kind of artificial intelligence, and charging them a good amount of money. to put it bluntly, because obviously the services you're providing and the time you'll spend teaching these trainings, so to speak, come at a high price, mainly because they're just on people teaching this in the market. And in fact, they will rarely even ask you for that because they know the price it entails. But still, many times they're also willing to pay that price. Consulting, probably one of the most interesting options. A company might come to you as an expert, as someone with knowledge, because you know what AI is, how it works, and how you can help them implement it. Not to implement it, rather to figure out what the implementation scheme could look like in order to build well automations for them. They might pay you simply for providing valuable information about how it works, what the automation would look like, what it would cost, and for the important insights you can offer them. This could even be for, like, let's say there's an area within artificial intelligence that could be marketing, and just by giving them information on how they could create ads with artificial intelligence, how to build them, or those ads would look like, how they would be made, all of that. With that alone, you could also monetize this skill. And now we move on to the most important one, which is implementation. Implementation obviously is the one that will dominate the most, because whether you like it or not, if you have implementation, you have either of the other two without any problem. Imagine creating the agents yourself, handling all the consulting, and even providing education if needed. It's about combining all three into one and being able to sell them without any issue. Without a doubt, is the one I recommend. Although the other two, consulting and education, are also very good options, especially if you don't want to get your hands dirty, so to speak. Well, seriously, implementation is going to lead, mainly because it's important, and there won't be many people willing to pay the price to truly learn how to design all these agents and how to do this kind of work. And of course, you are completely free to choose whichever of the two paths you prefer. If you'd rather do your own thing, be a freelancer, build these solutions yourself, and handle everything on your own, then you definitely need to take the path from the left, or one focused on building, mastering all the platforms, letting to create top-notch prompts, and crafting perfect solutions. That way, you dive much deeper into the field and learn everything from the inside out. And if not, there's absolutely no problem with that either. You can also take the other path, which would basically be, and if not, that's perfectly fine too. You can focus on people, on education, on consulting, on creating perfect strategic plans, analyzing models, identifying needs, and pinpointing pain points. All the importance that comes with this aspect of understanding artificial intelligence in order to provide solutions to the company. So now, this basically comes down to how much you know versus how much the business owner knows. Obviously, the more you know, the more they're willing to get. Knowledge is obvious from afar. You can tell when someone knows their stuff, when they don't, when someone is a guru and when they're not. So you have the basics, you have everything right now to get started. So you need to choose your path. I always believe that obviously you have to decide whether to go for education or to do things on your own and build them yourself. Obviously, everyone is different. Everyone has their own pros and cons.